So 5 years ago, in 2020, there were some FBI agents that were sent out to control crowds, which FBI doesn't usually do crowd control, at the protests for George Floyd. So some of these FBI agents took a knee and knelt with protesters, okay? This was investigated in 2020. They were found to do nothing wrong. They got fired yesterday, 5 years later, on September 26, 2025. A few FBI agents were fired from the 2025 kneeling with protesters. And actually, let me be clear, it's more than a few FBI agents. It's up to 20 FBI agents were fired yesterday. Kash Patel deciding to fire these agents is creating a lot of issues at the FBI. They are terminating experienced agents and causing issues with agents and management. President Trump wants to get rid of woke FBI agents, and Patel seems to be doing just that.
So y'all remember those officers that wanted to stand in solidarity with the protesters about George Floyd? Remember when they kneeled for George Floyd? Well, guess what? The FBI has just fired them. And yes, they fired them because they took a kneel. So these officers basically got fired because they recognized the injustice that happened with George Floyd, and taking a knee during a protest falls under your First Amendment. This is what they want us to see. They want us to know that our voice don't carry no weight. And it just goes to show that they up to their same old tactics. Control through fear and humiliation. No matter how hard they try to silence people and bury the truth, people's voices could never be fired. So let them keep trying to shut people up, but they could never stop the truth.
Remember this photo of FBI agents kneeling in solidarity during George Floyd protests 5 years ago? Well, now those very agents have been fired. Sources say about 20 agents who were in that picture have been reassigned initially and now have been terminated. Leadership claims it was from not meeting FBI standards. But critics and the agents themselves argue this is retaliation for a peaceful act of expression. Some of these agents have already filed lawsuits, saying the firings were unconstitutional, political, and violated federal employee protections. Even the DOJ's Inspector General once said kneeling doesn't break any FBI rules. So is this firing legal? That's the big question. Courts usually give leeway to agencies on discipline, but punishing political expression could very well be unconstitutional.
So guys, it seems like Kash Patel is moving mad. Yes, he's moving at people who he can get easily, but when there is an event, let's say shootings or something like that, he messes up a lot. Today we're talking about the FBI agents who were fired just the other day, September 26th, for an incident that happened 5 years ago. 2020, when the FBI agents took a knee because of that George Floyd situation. Of course, George Floyd's story is another story, a big story of which it has different sides of it. I do not touch on it today, but it's linked to this because FBI literally kneeled when there were protests. And obviously to me, I see it like a sign of solidarity, or at that time, it was just a way or a symbol of showing the protesters that the law enforcement were with them, and just a way to try to reduce more of that political distraction. You see, there was a lot of violence, a lot of fires and things like that. So there was no way FBI was going to thumb chest in order to make the protesters stop protesting. So the only way was just to show the protesters that they are with them. But hey, we're going to talk about the implications and why these people are fired. But mostly, we all know these people are fired because of political bias, and what FBI alleges that they had political bias. The firing is just based on political standing. With this administration, of course, they have different policies, and they feel like those people have to pay for the sins that they did earlier on. I don't think, if this case goes to court, I don't think there's any way FBI is going to win this, unless now maybe say judges are corrupt, which is a rare thing, but I'm not sure they're going to win this case easily. Before we even get deeper into this matter, let's continue listening to more opinions. Let's go.
First I ask, how is this making anyone's life better? How is this going to convince us that anyone on that side or supporting that side is anything other than racist. Firing people who kneeled for racial justice. You're firing people who were photographed kneeling in support of saying that Black lives in this country matter. You're firing people for supporting Black lives. Like, that is what's happening here. And it sends such an unbelievably clear message about what they want this country to be. And we keep sounding the alarm about this. And there are people over here still trying to defend context. And this is coming from the All Lives Matter crowd. Everything that they accuse us of doing, they are doing themselves. And I can't help but wonder why we're always on the receiving end of the vitriol. Look, there are times when I do think maybe it is two sides of the same coin, but there are other times when it's just so blatantly obvious. The people who complain about the left the most never have a single criticism for anything that is happening on their own side. They never call out the racism. They never call out the hateful rhetoric. They never call out the fact that the man they elected to be in office is a truly deplorable human being who thrives on putting people down and has never been a unifying leader. They haven't called out a single thing this administration has done that has ruined this country and destroyed the ability to have any form of civil discourse. And it's people in positions of privilege that bother me the most. And you know what? I'm actually pretty privileged. I own a home. I have a 2-income household. I work for myself. My husband has a great job. And to be honest, a lot of things probably won't hurt us as badly as they will other people. But I don't ignore it because I care. And I want everybody to be fine. I don't want other people to hurt and suffer from this administration's lack of care for its own citizens. But I guess it's worth it because we have no more red 40 or paper straws.
Did the FBI just fire 20 of its own agents for kneeling during the George Floyd protests in Washington, D.C. in 2020? Yeah, guys, that actually just happened. The agents were photographed outside the Justice Department in 2020, taking a knee during a moment of national reckoning. 5 years later, they have been terminated. I mean, the Associated Press reports the number is about 20. The Washington Post confirms that the move was approved under FBI Director Kash Patel. Sources say the decision was made because leadership believed the gesture undermined the Bureau's image of neutrality. The FBI Agents Association is calling the firings unlawful and demanding congressional investigations. A federal lawsuit filed by 3 former officials goes further, alleging this is part of a campaign of retribution pressured by President Trump and the Justice Department. That suit claims Patel even admitted some terminations were likely illegal, but carried them out anyways. Patel denies taking orders from the White House, period. The timing is critical, guys. Coming as Trump tightens his grip on federal law enforcement, critics warn this is a message to others inside the Bureau. Deviate from his line and rule, and you risk your career.
So 20 FBI agents have just been fired, and not for misconduct, not for leaking secrets, but for kneeling. Yes, kneeling. During the 2020 George Floyd protest, these agents took a knee, a gesture of empathy, solidarity, or de-escalation, depending on who you ask. At the time, no rules were broken, no discipline was handed out, but now, years later, the Bureau has cleaned house. The official word is silence so far. No explanation, just pink slips. And if showing humanity is a fireable offense, what does that say about the culture inside one of the most powerful law enforcement agencies in the world? And who's next?
The FBI has reportedly fired up to 20 agents who were seen kneeling during the George Floyd Black Lives Matter protests of 2020. This is part of the Trump administration purging what's called woke policies from federal agencies. Many outlets are reporting between 15 and 20 agents were dismissed this past Friday, but that number fluctuates. The FBI Agents Association condemned the move, calling it a violation of the agents' rights. Someone once said that when you protest racism in America, it looks as if you're protesting America because America was founded on racism. I think this is a good example of why that's true. These officers kneeling could have easily been interpreted as them showing these protesters they work for the people and not the politicians, or as a way to calm the protesters and not a political statement at all. But what we know and what the Trump administration keeps proving every day is that their fight isn't for justice or for you. It's for white nationalism and white supremacy.
Good. I couldn't be any prouder of Kash Patel and Donald J. Trump. No FBI informants who are responsible for keeping the peace in the United States should be kneeling for a career criminal, a pregnant woman abuser, the usual guy that the left decides to make look like a hero. Victimizers are always heroes in their eyes. Whole-ass politicians kneeled before him. Sorry, we only kneel before Christ. Whole-ass politicians cried before him and asked for forgiveness. Sorry, we only cry and kneel before Christ, the King of Kings. Evidently, they did not kneel and they did not cry for the victims that these career criminals that passed made for themselves. Evidently, they didn't give a shit about the victims. Because when it comes to Democrats and the far left, if anything affects racism and boosts their careers and they pretend like they give a shit, when they put all the people out, nobody wants to talk why George Floyd was let out so many times. They put a career criminal into the streets so he could defend so many times and then pretended like they cared about black Americans when they are responsible for letting out these monsters into the streets to go after your kids, to go after your women, to go after you. Not only should the FBI agents get fired for kneeling, so should the politicians. They should be all locked up. Do not praise a career criminal that didn't have any empathy for his victims for years. His only job was to hurt others.
After listening from both parties or both sides, both the conservatives and the progressives, we find a pattern here. We find that the progressives tend to defend what the agents did, and most of the conservatives, they feel like Patel or the Trump administration is actually doing the right thing. But if you look at it in general, like this whole issue of BLM, of course it was a politicized movement which was not intended to be. BLM was actually supposed to be an activist organization which was supposed to stand for the rights of those people who are racially abused or racially stereotyped. Of course, the black people in America. But obviously, when people make rushed decision, they don't even understand what happened. So when the truth came out about George Floyd, I'll say the truth because so many people still don't believe what they say about George Floyd. Of course, if you look at criminal records or if you look at the court records, you'd find George Floyd's name over there, and there are some transgressions that he had committed before. And people are saying that the moment this guy passed on is like it was majorly contributed by the officer who put a knee on his neck, but others also say that it was as a result of also him being dragged out at the moment, and that he was dragged out at the point where the police officer arrested him. It just brings out multiple situations that people have to understand, like, is it actually the police officers who caused his death, or is it just these actions that made the actions of police officers that made him die, or was it just overall racially motivated? But hey, during that time, people were taking a knee. I remember even in sports, even up to date, some sports still take a knee for that BLM movement. Of course, people later came out and found out that the BLM heads were just using this movement to get money from donations and just use it for their own use. But the motive of BLM was actually to fight against racism. Away from that, or away from looking at that, I would say this way. This is not just about kneeling. When we look at FBI agents being fired, we think about whether do we allow empathy in law enforcement, or is it political loyalty which is replacing professional judgment? From a progressive standpoint, it's actually a dangerous precedent when FBI agents are left to take political sides. Obviously, it's obviously going to reflect in the next administration if it changes. And would it be right for them also to be fired for what they are doing right now? I think it's just not a good move. It's like Kash Patel wanted these FBI agents at that time to not choose peace over escalation, of which I had told you before. I really do feel like at that moment when they took the knee, they just wanted to show people that they were with them, and they just wanted this thing to be over and about, and people just to understand, and people to calm down, live together in peace, and just to let them know that everyone the world has known that we all want to fight against racism. The implications are there, and I'm gonna touch on some of the implications, like for instance, the violation of due process. When I talk about the violation of due process, of course, Kash Patel is defending himself, saying that when FBI agent took a knee, they're expressing their political stance, and this showed political bias, which is against FBI, which FBI should be a neutral body, which I agree should be a neutral body. But what are they supposed to do in the field? What they do in the field is completely different to what they do in their offices, and I think Kash Patel knows this. The lack of disciplinary findings in 2020 makes this 2025 termination appear to be so retroactive and ideological. So you find someone 5 years ago to be innocent of all the charges that are being brought about, but 5 years later you claim that the same people who are exonerated, that they committed political bias, and that is the ground or basis for firing, and that it shows neutrality in the FBI body. At least maybe let's say a warning would have done good for them. The next thing is obviously the chilling effect on dissent. So when the agents get to know that they can be fired because of a minor thing like that, then they can now fear expressing empathy or restraint, even in volatile situations like that. And when the message is clear from the FBI that political optics outweigh field judgment, then I think some of the FBI agents would just be demotivated because they feel like anything they do which they are not sure of or which is politically inclined may lead to them being fired, not now but later in their career. Third issue is obviously the institutional trust. When you're working with people who are constantly firing, and when firings deepen concerns that the federal law enforcement is being politicized, then they are not going to have to trust on this Trump's second term and the administration, because they feel like if they go against them, just like I said, they will just be laid off. Civil rights groups also warn that this could erode public trust, which we've talked about it for a very long time. Public trust and this administration is seemingly becoming a declining matter over the months that Donald Trump administration has been. You can see even the approval ratings dropping, and it appears like this is undermining FBI's independence and integrity. Going forward, I really do think that if this would be grounds for firing FBI agents, then there will be a lot of mistrust between the public and the FBI, or even the FBI and the administration. That's just how I've been looking about this whole situation. I don't know how it's gonna turn out to be, especially the court case. We'll be following on this matter. I'm very sure this is not the final video on this matter. Whenever something develops, I'll bring it up to you guys. So guys, this is just about my opinions today. If you have something to add on or something to dispute, please do so in the comment section down there below. Remember to be respectful. Your opinions and thoughts will obviously be so insightful and so important in just dissecting this video or just putting this video into a meaning. Please don't be shy. Don't forget to also go and check the creators who I have featured in this video today. Go onto their TikToks, follow their accounts, like their videos. For this video, make sure you smash a huge thumbs up button, consider subscribing, turn on post notifications so that you may not miss my next upload. And with that guys, Danny here, signing out. Peace.